We continue our working day, and now I give the floor to the presidential administration spokesman on ATO-related issues, Colonel Andriy Lysenko. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. The situation in the east of Ukraine continues to deteriorate. The enemy delivers precision fire at positions of ATO forces, and including the use of heavy weapons. And during the last 24 hours, the enemy used grad systems. And now, more detailed information. In Lugansk area, the enemy violated ceasefire twice near Krymska village to the north to Bakhmutska highway. The militants used mortars and grenade launcher. Also, mortar shelling by the enemy was delivered in the region of occupied Pervomaisk. Ukrainian intelligence service states that Russian servicemen delivered artillery shelling of residential quarters of Lugansk, and it was delivered from Alexandrovsk town, and that is controlled by the enemy. In Donetsk area, the situation deteriorated near Donetsk airport, and there were 2 instances of the use of grad systems. They also used mortars, and 20 shells were delivered, and fire was delivered from Staromikhailivka village that is occupied by the enemy. In Svetlodarska Bulge to the north of Gorlovka, there was calm, but there was the use of some weapon, but without the use of heavy weapons. In Mariupol area, enemy shellings continue in the region of Marinka and Krasnogorivka. Sporadic fire, mortar fires delivered by the enemy, and more than 60 mortar mines were launched by the enemy. And also mortar shellings carried out by the enemy were to the south in the region of Chermalik and Lebedinska to Shirokine. And according to the information of the Chief Intelligence Department of MOD, Russia continues to supply ammunition and military equipment and oil and fuel materials. And on the 15th and 16th of February, an echelon with the military equipment came to Makiivka. These were 122 mm howitzers D30 and ammunition to up to 40 tons. And also some oil and fuel. And also to Kumachova in Strabinsk region in Donetsk Oblast, Russia sent there 5 RPCs, 2 grad systems, and also some military trucks and other military equipment. During the last 24 hours, no Ukrainian serviceman was killed. 1 was injured in Opetna village by the and 1 Ukrainian serviceman, he was in the truck. He got wounded in the result of the explosion of anti-tank mine TM-62. It happened near Zolote town in Lugansk Oblast. Our paratroopers carry out tasks, and they carry out training, and they are trained and they demonstrate their skills. They use RPC, Humvee, and also that is equipped with machine guns. And also there was a task how to suppress the fire of the imaginary enemy, and other tasks, including speed fire. And also in chief office of the National Police in Donetsk Oblast, they carried out some technical trainings, and according to the legend, administrative buildings building was there was an attempt, imaginary attempt of the seizure of the building, and fortezia plan was implemented, and they in the course of the training they repelled the attack of the imaginary enemy, and the enemy was neutralized. The president of Ukraine awarded 80 soldiers and officers, 195 servicemen and 5 representatives of national police were awarded, and these were the people who fought in the Debaltseve and the Donetsk airport, and 5 police officers carried out the evacuation in the Debaltseve operation. And also to your attention is a trailer prepared by the General Staff of our forces, and there are key episodes of the battle, the Debaltseve battle, that was last year, and they show those events that happened in Debaltseve, and a report was published by our General Staff on the military actions in Debaltseve, and this report was published 2 weeks ago. And in this trailer, our forces are marked blue, and the enemy is marked in red color. And the film on Debaltseve will be demonstrated on leading TV channels. The trailer. During 2015 February, the tense situation continues. The most difficult situation was near Debaltseve, and the enemy tried to force the Ukrainians out of there, and to force Ukraine this created destabilization of the situation, and these events were in the sea sector. And in February 2015 there were about 4,700 Ukrainian servicemen, and about 500 National Guardsmen, and also the representatives of SBU. And from the side of the militants, there were more than 10,000 militants, and we had 120 tanks, 180 artillery systems, 65 Grad systems, and the enemy had an advantage. They had 170 tanks, 290 artillery units, and 110 Grad systems. The situation was like this. In this sector, there were 50 checkpoints, 7 strongholds, and 8 objects of infrastructure. The enemy concentrated in the settlements, and the enemy gathered a big force, and also they used the equipment provided by the Russian Federation. And the first echelon, there were first and second army corps that were formed from the Russian mercenaries, some criminal elements. The second corps was the regular forces of Russian Federation, and they tried to encircle Ukrainian forces in the region of Debaltseve and to go to Kharkiv Oblast. And in the result of this, our forces would split in two, and they tried to do this, and Uglegorsk, Nikishina, Ritkadub, and Chernuhina, and Debaltseve, in these directions, Russians and militants, they advanced, and in Uglegorsk, the militants used mortars and artillery, and after this, 5 tanks arrived there, and 13 battalion and the police, they retreated to the south, and the enemy used the situation, and they advanced to the center of the city. And the Svitas and anti-tank battery, they were in the building of school, and they stayed there. We were there in this building of the school, and there were some groups who attacked this building, trying to seize it, and there were some RPCs used. And on the 31st of January, a second group with the National Guard from 2 directions, they started to advance. From the west, the attack succeeded, but from the east, the militants, they fought with the 1st Brigade and with the 3rd Brigade, and there were some 400 people. They couldn't arrive, and there were only 70 people there. And also anti-tank brigade of artillery, they left, and the enemy started to attack from 3 different directions, and they took Kalinivka and the heights near Uglegirsk-Lazove. We, on the 22nd, we came there, and it was rather calm, but then the military action started. Near Nikishina, one of the companies of 25th Battalion, they went back to Stanislav, and the settlement was controlled from one side by the militants, and from other side it was blocked by swamps. And because of the shellings, Stanislav was blocked, and in the morning of February the 6th, the divisions of 128 Brigade and 30 Brigade, they started to advance, and this group, they moved forward, and during the 6 hours, they took the positions, but the 3rd Brigade, they don't want to carry out this task, and the enemy forced our servicemen out of the stronghold. And we understood that Russian military, they are against us. And in Logvinovo, the militants, with the support of Russian servicemen, they took the village, and the road of life is under control of the occupants. And in order to remove the enemy, force out the enemy, they created a division, and part of these forces, they went from the north and east, but other part refused to go from the south and to complete this task. It's because they were outnumbered. They were forced to retreat. We tried to enter Logivina, and they stayed there till 1 p.m. And then I was wounded, and we were forced to retreat. And the important task was to blow the railway, and due to the lack of time and difficult situation, they were able to deactivate only one piece of infrastructure. And then in the Baltsova, 106 servicemen, and then the enemy came to the town, and 2 kilometers were open for the enemy, and 23 paratroopers tried to withstand this. And also the Minsk negotiations continued, and they speak about ceasefire and the line of confrontation. And they tried to win, and to maybe they tried to do something about it, but the president, Mr. Poroshenko, he was able to start negotiation, and Russia became a party of this conflict, and for the whole world to see. And were 4 hours of silence, and then everything started once again. The fire continued, and taking into account the situation, the decision was taken to move our servicemen out of this settlement, and the situation was uncontrollable, and the decision was taken to leave Debaltseve. After this, the commanders were gathered, and they were informed on the order of retreat and who leaves when, and the retreat was carried out in several stages. First, 128 brigade left and 15 battalion. The second stage, 128th brigade left, and the part of other battalion left, and then they left the Baltseva altogether, and it's difficult to take all these servicemen out of this settlement, and there was a threat of full encirclement, and there were 2 routes for retreat, and also there was one imaginary and there were some positions, and also there were some bridges over the river, and the divisions of 30th Brigade, they helped in this retreat, and if this exit was chaotic, half of the brigade would rest there. And about the losses, 110 servicemen died, 270 injured, and 7 were captured, and 18 were missing in action, and 30% of the equipment were destroyed by the enemy. The losses of the enemy, 870 and 100 pieces of equipment were destroyed. A lot of people were killed. They were in the crowds. They were armed, and also they provided them with some cartridges, and they were forced to advance to Stomas. And many servicemen got medals and orders, and in the Baltseve operation, the attempt of the enemy was stopped, and they tried to get some dividends for further expansion. Our servicemen, Lugansk, Troitsky, Popasne, they stopped the enemy at Lugansk, Troitsky, Popasne, and they heroically fought for their country, and due to their courage, the advance of Russian terrorist forces was stopped. And after the official report that Ukrainian forces left Debaltseve, they were the enemy, they were afraid to enter Debaltseve because they were afraid that they will fight back, because enemy had huge losses and they were very tired. We lost Debaltseve, and this is a big part of the territory, but we also fought with the enemy courageously, and we were there, we fought, and we completed the task that was before us. And this task was difficult, but the units, they completed this task. Thank you. If you have some questions, please ask. Thank you, Mr. Colonel. And do you have some questions? Please introduce yourself. Ksenia Dvornikova, 5th channel. Do Ukrainian servicemen fire at the enemy, and what are the losses of the enemy, and what about the drones during these 24 hours? In case of necessity, in order to protect one's life and to repel the attacks of the enemy, Ukrainian servicemen have the right to return fire, and commanders are responsible for this. There's no prohibition on returning the fire in case of emergency. As to drones, there were no drones. The enemy does not carry out air surveillance, but there are some subverters, and there's radio and technical intelligence and surveillance. As to the weapons, what we have, according to the Minsk agreement, all the heavy weapons is withdrawn to the distance that is agreed, and we have only small arms, grenade launchers, grenade launchers, and large caliber machine guns. That in order to stop the attacks of the enemy. Do you have other questions? We end our press conference. Thank you. Our next press conference is at 2 p.m.